I would like to welcome everybody to the Orlando Sentinel's candidate interview with two judicial candidates for Orange County Judge Group 11. We have with us today Lisa Gong Guerrero. She's a former top prosecutor in Orange and Osceola counties, and she is challenging Adam McGinnis, who has been a county judge since 2013. One interesting thing that this race may mark a first for us. Both of our candidates today are graduates of Barry University School of Law, which is right here in Orlando. So what we will do is we will start with the first question, and this one is one that kind of seems to really kind of touch on the idea of how you want to be seen as a judge. And that is that the phrase judicial temperament is often used to describe those qualities that a good judge should exhibit. Which qualities of judicial temperament do you believe are most important? And let's start with Ms. Guerrero.
I think the qualities that are most important is for a judge is the ability to listen without judgment, and the ability to treat everyone with kindness and dignity. I think in our current society, too many people are hearing people, but they're not really listening. And when I go before a judge, what I look for in a judge is, is the judge professional? Is the judge allowing me time to argue my point? And is the judge really hearing and listening to my argument? Irregardless of how the judge rules, even if the judge rules not in my favor, as long as I feel that I was heard and respected, I would respect their opinion. So I think an important factor for a judge is their ability to listen, to be fair, and just to treat everyone with dignity.
Okay, Judge McGinnis.
Thank you, Chris. As you know, I've been a judge for 11 and a half years right now, and I've been assigned to every division in county court. And I think every division has their own pros and cons and their own battles that they need to fight. And I think that when you're a judge and you practice law and you appear in all these different divisions, the thing that I've noticed the most is a judge, not only to Lisa's point, the ability to listen, but also to relate to the individuals. If you think about it, a county court judge is really the only elected official that a lot of individuals ever meet face to face. And so you get pro se litigants in county court, in small claims court, in civil court. They come in for misdemeanors, for traffic tickets, for county ordinances. And it's the only time that they actually have an elected official face to face make a decision, talk to them, and directly affect their lives. And so I think that somebody who's approachable, somebody that is able to educate them, somebody that can walk them through the process without stepping over and actually litigating for or against them is a great quality. I also think that in the criminal divisions, when we have these young prosecutors and these young public defenders, a lot of what we do with them is educate them during the trial. So I think being able to teach, being able to kind of convey the law to individuals is a great quality that we have, because a lot of people come in and they're scared to death and they don't know the law. And so if you can sit there and listen to them and then educate them on the law, and no matter what your decision is, if they walk out of there knowing that they've been heard and they feel that they got a fair shot at things, that's a big part of the judicial demeanor in county court as opposed to, say, circuit court.
I would like to follow up. And that is something that I'm sure you're both aware of. County court is often called the people's court. Many litigants do appear before the court without, and defendants as well sometimes, without legal representation. As a judge, what do or should you do to protect the fair administration of justice when one of the parties in a case is without an attorney and the other one is represented? And I'll start with Judge McGinnis.
So oftentimes in county civil, we see a number of pro se litigants that are defendants in cases. And quite honestly, they can't afford a lawyer. Otherwise, they probably wouldn't be in county civil as a defendant. A number of those cases are credit card default cases. You'll have homeowners association cases. And so in those instances, there's an individual that's having financial issues and can't afford a lawyer. And so the biggest part about that is really educating them on the process. They'll get served with a complaint and a summons, and they can't make heads or tails out of it. And so the toughest thing for a judge is to in those situations is to educate them without actually advocating for them. And like I said in my last answer, that's a tightrope that you have to walk. And so really it comes down to, again, educating them, making sure that they understand what the pros and cons are of their situation, what the law is, and to give them resources to find where they can learn what the law is or attempt to learn. Offer them. We have a library here that they can use, and so a lot of it is just, it, again, goes back to my point of educating them, making sure that they understand where they're at, what the consequences are, and how this case is going to proceed. In county court, most of the defendants are actually represented with counsel. In county court, you have the benefit of a public defender that can be appointed if you can't afford a lawyer. So the majority of the clients there are represented. The times that they aren't would be arraignments, and that's when we educate them on what their rights are as far as representing themselves, hiring a private attorney, or getting them qualified for the public defender. So again, it's just making sure that they're aware of the situation that they're in.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Guerrero, same question.
So I think, the phrase educating without advocating is very important. I believe our community has become increasingly diverse over the last decade, and there are a lot of pro se litigants that come to court who don't speak English or who speak very little English and don't understand the legal terms. I myself, remember growing up as a kid having to go with my mom to the driver's license office to interpret for her so that she can get a driver's license. I would also accompany my grandmother and my aunts and uncles to their doctor's appointments and interpret for them because they don't understand the difficult medical terminology. And I feel like the court system is the same exact way. In county civil small claims, pro se litigants are not entitled to an interpreter. And a lot of times judges would have to ask for volunteers in court to, hey, can you help, interpret, or can you, or the judge would have to slow down and just explain things really slowly and make sure that they understand. And that, really delays the court proceedings. What I would like to do if I were a judge is I would like to work with the voluntary bar associations, such as the Orange County Bar Association or the Hispanic Bar and the Asian American Bar Association, to come up with one-page guides so that we can give to these pro se litigants on what they can expect. And also, I think there is also a need. There's a lot of resources on how to file a case. There's not a lot of resources on what to do when the case is pending. How do you set a court hearing? What do you do in the discovery process? How do you conduct a trial? How do you conduct an evidentiary hearing? I would also work with the voluntary bar associations to record these short videos that pro se litigants can watch in the comfort of their own homes so that when they come to court, they are prepared and judges have to spend less time explaining to them what to expect.
I actually am sorry, Jay, I will let you ask a question, I promise. But that actually goes right to another one of the questions I had, which is the adequacy of resources for people who are either not fluent in English or who are not able to hear or see the court proceedings or attend court proceedings in person sometimes. And so Orange County has some resources, but I'd like you both to talk about where you think more resources are needed. And you've kind of already started with that, Ms. Guerrero, so I wanted to see if you wanted to finish up that thought and then ask Judge McGinnis to respond.
So I think, you know, some resources that we could really improve are the translation resources, as I mentioned earlier. You know, before I enter law, I had a background in business as a consultant for Accenture. And I frequently was tasked with going into companies, reviewing their business processes and coming up with processes to improve their business functions, to improve efficiency, or to optimize their business functions. So if I were to be elected judge, I would draw a lot of those experiences to see how we can improve some of the resources that are available. With the budgetary constraints, our judges these days have to be creative and innovative on how to improve access to the courts and, you know, how to resolve cases in a quick manner. Again, I would work with partner agencies and organizations to see if, you know, they can assist in that aspect. For example, as I mentioned, the bar associations with translation and making videos. That requires very little resource that we can accommodate and accomplish. So, you know, I would really like to work with those agencies and organizations to see how we can improve the access of the courts for these litigants.
Okay, and Judge McGinnis, you've obviously probably seen a lot of areas where you could see where more resources are needed. So what do you think would be your priorities there?
So, you know, in answer to that question, to me, there's two areas that need to be addressed. One is access to courts, and then one is helping individuals who have some sort of disability or inability to communicate properly with us, and how we help them. And so one of the first things I'd like to point out is before arraignments and before traffic court, we have two videos, one in English and one in Spanish, that helps explain to the litigants what to expect and what the process is going to be. I actually helped draft the scripts for that, the English version of that video, which we then drafted a Spanish version of 7 years ago, and helped put that together so that we could educate those individuals. With regards to access to courts, when COVID came, I was actually the first judge to implement the Cisco virtual link in our courtroom, and I was the guinea pig for virtual hearings with Cisco. And what was interesting is one of the concerns were that we would have pro se litigants or indigent litigants that would have an inability to log on to a link because it required a cell phone. And so I tracked every litigant that came before me for a period of 1.5 years while we did the Cisco experiment. And out of all the cases I had, only 2 individuals that were indigent didn't have a cell phone, only 2. And it's funny because now at this point, the state attorney's office has implemented a new PTI program, and it's mainly directed towards individuals that are first-time offenders, and it requires a cell phone to log on to complete the PTI program. So I think we've come a long way with allowing access for individuals that just don't have an ability, whether it's a transportation issue, a health issue, a distance issue to get to court. And so I think we can still improve on that. I feel like since COVID, we've taken a step back a little bit, but we invested a lot of money into those systems, and I think we just need to keep using those systems.
Great, thank you. I will step in for a question real quick. I know that a recent decision by the Florida Supreme Court, it seems like it might weaken some restrictions on what judges could say or even hint at about their political or partisan affiliation. What do you think of this decision, and is it going to change the way that you campaign for this race? And I will start. Pardon me, I lost my place there. I'll start with Judge McGinnis.
So, yeah, I believe you're talking about the decision that came out on June 20th, last Thursday. So as a sitting judge, I'm not going to comment on what the Supreme Court says, if I agree or disagree, or if I think it's right or if I think it's wrong. Is it going to affect the way I campaign? Absolutely not. I'm not going to go into that realm. I won in 2012 under the rules that we had up until Thursday. I won again in 2018 with those same rules. I think that the independence of the judiciary is extremely important. And the last thing we want is for somebody to pick a judge or to not pick a judge because of some sort of partisan issue or because they think they lean some way. I think that being a judge, the ultimate view that you should have of the judiciary is one of independence, one of being right down the middle. And if we start using little phrases to try and steer people in one direction or the other, I think it destroys the sanctity of that. I mean, if you look at what's going on in the federal level, and I think the federal judges are great, but when you get appointed by somebody who's on the right or somebody who's on the left, and then they get in trouble, and then you see all the pontificators talk about how, well, this judge was appointed by this person, and so they're going to be this way or that way. And with us being nonpartisan and taking those phrases out, I think it really does help, increase the value and the sanctity of our position. So it's not going to change anything I'm going to do.
Great. Thank you for that. Ms. Guerrero, what are your thoughts?
I'm in the same similar boat. I think, in order to decide which judge is the most appropriate candidate in this case, I think voters really need to look at, a candidate's experience and, what does the candidate bring to the table. The opinion won't change how I campaign. I'm running a campaign based on my experience, my 18-year service in the community. And I'm also running on, a campaign of, that I am passionate about making a positive impact in the community. I think in the current divisive nature of, our community, we are really looking for our elected officials to really unify and bring the community together. We want our elected officials to, inspire others and be a role model that, our community can aspire to be. And so my campaign is all about my experience, my passion for justice, and my passion for making a difference. And I would not think anything of that opinion. I want to preserve the integrity of the justice system and the role of a judge. And so it won't change how I campaign.
One of the big concerns quite frequently with a high volume court is efficiency. How do you balance the need to be more efficient in the administration of justice without sacrificing fairness and opportunity for people to be heard? Ms. Guerrero, we'll start with you.
I think, just as a young prosecutor at the state attorney's office, when I was in county court, there was oftentimes that I had the entire docket to myself. And I had to balance and handle all the cases that come before a county court division. So I've learned how to be efficient. I've learned how to multitask. In addition to that, I also was involved in voluntary bar associations. And so, drawing from that experience, I think it's important, that our judges can juggle, a large volume and have experience doing it. I would, as a judge, I would try to implement some case management practices where I can group similar, issues or motions or hearings around the same time. And so that I can give the attorneys in the courtroom, especially our young prosecutors and our young public defenders who have a massive caseload, I want to ensure that they have sufficient and reasonable time to prepare for their cases, to ensure that people are adequately represented and victims have a fair opportunity to be heard and participate in the process. So I would pay attention to my case management practices and set processes and procedures in place so that, I, make sure that the court time is the most efficient as possible.
Well, and the question is a little different for Judge McGinnis because you've been doing this for quite a while. So if you wanted to tell us some of the things that you've done to help things move more efficiently without sacrificing any justice.
Sure. So as you pointed out, I've been a judge for 12 years. And every division that I've taken over, I've reduced the caseload in every single division, and I've reduced the median case time, which means the time it takes from the case to start to finish. So two big examples come to mind. The first example is 2 years ago, I took over the county domestic violence division, where all we heard were domestic violence cases. And so, as you know, in Florida, we have a speedy trial rule. And so what was happening when I took over that division is that from the time to arrest to the time that somebody went to arraignment, I believe it was about 67 or 72 days. And so what was happening is before we could even get these individuals set for trial, speedy trial became an issue. And so what I did is I worked with the clerk's office, I worked with the state attorney's office and the supervisors at the state attorney's office, and we slowly increased the number of arraignments. And within a year's time, we got that time from arrest to arraignment down to about 38 days. So we cut it in half. And during that same time, we tried about 35 cases in the last year. So we didn't sacrifice resolving cases in a proper manner in order to reduce that case time. We were able to reduce that case time and try cases. The other big example I can give you is that when I was in county civil, we had a number of PIP, personal injury protection cases that all had the same issue. And I actually organized an en banc hearing with 4 judges, and we were able to find over 900 cases with the same defendant, the same plaintiff, and the same issue, and we resolved 900 cases in one afternoon. And that single-handedly reduced the caseload amongst 4 county divisions by 10%.
Thank you for that. I'll step in for a question really quickly. Wanted to ask you both about recusals, because I know that judges are sometimes asked to recuse themselves when there's a perceived conflict or an actual conflict. And I wanted to get your opinion on whether that's used properly and sort of where the line is for you in terms of conflict. Judge McGinnis, we'll start with you.
I don't think I've had a motion to recuse me off of a case. Actually, I had one this year, and prior to that, I'm going to say it's been maybe 6 years. I've never seen anybody actually abuse that process. I think that when the motions have been made, they've been made for the right reasons. I found out after a motion to suppress that the defendant in the case I had this year lived down the street from me. And so he said recuse, and I said 100%. The only recusals I had after that were my opponent from 6 years ago and her husband and his brother, which were all lawyers, and I recused those. I think that's proper as well. But other than those, I can't think of, I couldn't tell you the last time somebody's asked me, and I don't think any of those were abuses of discretion. I don't think anybody's really forum shopping. I think you might see that more with the recusals in the civil realm. I think you might see it more in circuit court just because the stakes are higher and people or the nerves are higher. But in county court, we rarely see those.
Thank you for that. Ms. Guerrero, what are your thoughts on it?
You know, my thoughts are that if I appear to know any of the litigants or the attorneys before me on a personal level, I would want to make sure that everyone involved knows about it. I would self-disclose to the parties involved, and I would let them decide whether or not they need to file a motion to recuse me. If I believe myself that I need to be recused because it's a personal relationship or a matter that I may be familiar with, I will recuse myself. But I believe in transparency. And that's why, you know, for me, I would self-disclose to the parties involved and let them file the appropriate motions. And I think that's very important to preserve the integrity and the fairness and impartiality of a judge.
I had one more question. I know that Orange County, both at the county and circuit level, has taken advantage of the opportunity to have specialty courts that address issues like domestic violence, very young offenders, and various opportunities. Where and this could be at the county level or the circuit level, what opportunities is is Orange County missing? Where would be the best ways to expand specialty or problem-solving courts? And I just would really kind of like your ideas. Ms. Guerrero?
So if I had the decision-making authority and resources were not a problem in our circuit, I would love to see a specialty court for criminal traffic offenses. I think currently there is a large volume of those cases that go through the county court docket. Probably more than half of the cases are criminal traffic that is made up of DUIs, suspended license case, leaving the scene of the accident. And the traffic laws are so specific and they relate to, your driver's license privileges, court fines and fees. And so they impact a lot. And I think if we can create a specialty court for these criminal traffic cases, I think that would be great to alleviate, some of the docket in some of the other misdemeanor divisions or county court divisions, so they can handle other cases. Having one designated judge who is basically an expert and who deals with those issues on a daily basis will resolve those cases quicker. And so I would love to see a specialty court for criminal traffic. I would also love to see a specialty court for homelessness, people who are suffering from homelessness. I think, it would be really awesome. I know in South Florida, they have such a court. I was, before I left the state attorney's office, I was trying to see if we can work with some of the partner agencies to create something in Central Florida with the state attorney's office, the public defender's office, and the judiciary. Unfortunately, we weren't able to finish that effort, but I would love to see something that addresses the homelessness in our community.
All right, Judge McGinnis.
With this one, I tend to agree with Lisa. A large volume of our docket on the misdemeanor docket are driver's license offenses, driving while licensed, suspended, no valid driver's license. I do know that a couple of years ago that the state attorney's office tried to craft a diversion program for these cases. And I sent a lot of cases to this diversion program, and the diversion program ended up being a bust. So we weren't actually able to resolve it, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it was the wrong idea, maybe just the wrong approach. So I do agree that we need to come up with a way to deal with these cases. The law is pretty specific. And so I don't know if forming a designated judge to handle solely traffic cases addresses the issue of a specialty court per se. But the problems with people with driving while license suspended is they fail to pay a ticket, and then they dig a hole and they dig a hole, and then they get caught driving, and then they dig a hole and they get into such a big hole that they can't get out. And so we have Operation Greenlight that we do in conjunction with the clerk's office to help people get their licenses back. And so if we could kind of do some sort of diversion program or a specialty court where we could do a better job of that, I think that's a great opportunity right there to help people get their licenses back, especially in an area like Orlando where public transportation and things of that nature aren't necessarily available. We have a huge migrant population that just can't get driver's licenses. The other thing that I would recommend is in Sarasota County, they have a DUI court. It's similar to drug court, and DUIs and drugs. The DUI court, it really addresses the root causes of why people are out there getting DUIs. It's something we don't have. And a few other circuits do. And I think that's another area that we could definitely go into and try and help people. But overall, they're all traffic related cases for the most part.
Well, thank you very much. In just a minute, I am going to ask both of you to kind of wrap up what you would like voters to consider when they go to the polls. And that will be early voting starting on August 10th. And election day on August 20th. But what I would also like to do is remind everybody who's going to watch this that while the Sentinel will be making an endorsement in this race, and it's going to be a tough decision, there are other ways to find out about each of these very good candidates. Both of them have web presence that you can read what they have to say for themselves, about and for themselves. There will be, of course, the Sentinel's excellent news coverage, and there are going to be lots of opinions going around. So we urge you to do as much research as you can. Find the person who best represents your own values and be sure to vote. These races are not dramatic like some of the ones we've seen, but they are so important. And so we really find that that taking a look at the candidates for judges is something that will benefit all the voters. So what we'd like to do then is start with Ms. Guerrero. If you could just make your case as to why you think you would be the best choice in this race, and then we'll move to Judge McGinnis and he can do the same.
Thank you. Well, I think it's always a great day in our community and our country when our voters have a choice to make. And I think, you know, judges are so important to our community because they touch so many people's lives and they make so many important decisions. You know, as a mom, as a wife, as a career public servant, as a community leader, you know, who came from humble beginnings, I am running for judge because I am qualified, I am dedicated to serve, and I want to make a positive impact in our community. I have spent my entire 18-year legal career keeping our community safe as an assistant state attorney. And throughout my career, I have handled thousands of misdemeanor and felony cases, including some of the most complex cases in the Ninth Circuit. I am proud to be board certified in criminal trials by the Florida Bar since 2015. In order to earn that distinction, which is only earned by probably about 5% of eligible Florida Bar members at this point, you have to show that you have demonstrated an extensive number of trials. You have to undergo a rigorous peer review process that your counterparts, your attorneys and judges you appeared before you have to rate you. And you also have to take a comprehensive written exam to show proficiency in the area. I have tried over 145 jury trials to verdict, ranging from misdemeanors to felonies, and including 13 homicide cases. I believe that we need an experienced voice in the courtroom because a lot of attorneys who are assigned county court cases are new attorneys who are newly licensed or even law student interns. And we need that experienced voice in the courtroom to protect the rights of the victims and the rights of the accused. And again, I am running a positive campaign. I want the community to know that with hard work and dedication, that you can achieve greatness like becoming a Orange County judge. And I would appreciate your support and your vote on or before August 20th. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Judge McGinnis?
First, I'd like to thank Chris and Jay for allowing us this opportunity. You know, one of the things, like you said, with the judicial campaigns is that there's no real hot button topics with us. There's nothing flashy or showy about us. And it's often difficult for people to even pay attention to our race or to even educate themselves about our races. So I'd encourage you to go on my Facebook, my Instagram, follow, join, see where we're at. You know, I was elected in 2012, and I remember doing this interview with the Orlando Sentinel. It was actually in person. And I was lucky enough to have the endorsement of the Orlando Sentinel in 2012. And then I remember in 2018 doing the same interview, but it was over the phone. And so now we're doing it over Zoom or Google Meet. So it's been a different experience and a pleasurable experience. And I just want to thank you again for allowing us this opportunity. As I stated, I've been a judge for 12 years. I've received high marks in every judicial poll that's ever been taken of me. I'm the only candidate in this race with experience in every division in county court. I'm the only candidate that's done a civil case, that's done a civil trial. I'm the only candidate that's run a docket. I've been an attorney now for nearly 20 years. I've been a judge for 12. During those two campaigns, I've had the support of the community, I've received more donations, more volunteers, more endorsements than anyone else. This year, I currently have the endorsements of 2 prior chief judges, multiple past presidents of multiple bar associations, I think 8 or 7 circuit court judges. I've gotten the endorsement of law enforcement. I've gotten the endorsement of the firefighters. I've gotten the endorsement of small businesses and large businesses. I've gone around and I've gained a lot of support this year. I've always had support in 2018 and 2012. And I think that if you look at the community support, you'll see that the support's there, and that I've been here and I've been presenting myself and representing the citizens of Orange County. I'm a UCF grad, a Barry guy. I volunteered in Central Florida and I've worked in Central Florida and lived in Central Florida my entire adult life. I love my job. I love serving the community, and I can't wait to continue doing that next year. So thank you, and check me out on Instagram and Facebook, Twitter, and everything else.
Well, I want to once again thank you both. This has been really enjoyable and informative, and I wish you both the best of luck.